Welcome back to Aerospace Engineering. Today we're going to do some SOLIDWORKS Flow simulation on your wing. So what I have up on my screen is my sample wing that I showed you how to make. And you all made 3D printed and are in the process or have just finished your wind tunnel testing of that wing. So let's get our wing ready to do some of this analysis. And the first thing I want to do is kind of clean up my wing. A couple things to notice here. You may have your curve still displayed. I'll show what that looks like. Let's turn that off just because we don't really need to look at it. It just confuses the display. So the way to do that is click on the curve and then click the eyeball for height. Second thing I want to do is get rid of our names on the edge of the wing, whatever side you put it on, and then your reference rectangle, whatever side you put that on, which is how we set it in the wind tunnel at 0 AOA. So the way to get rid of that is choose the cut extrude or cut extrudes that you may have. And if you right click on that, you're going to see the ability to suppress them. Suppress them, don't hide them. Suppress them takes them out of the computation equation and makes the equation a little simpler, a little easier to solve. All right, we are now set up and we got our wing cleaned up. Go ahead and save your wing at this point. Now, as we look at this, we've only really got one reference, and that reference, or only one coordinate system. And that coordinate system is how we designed our wing. We designed this so that the x-axis runs from the leading edge to the trailing edge or along the chord line. So what we want to do is create a new reference geometry. Now there's several ways we can create the new reference geometry. I think probably one of the easiest ways to do that is to put a couple of lines in to represent the different angles of attack. Now I'm going to come in here and do a sketch. So I'm going to choose my sketch tab, my sketch button. Maybe I will. Oh, hang on here. Got my origin selected. There we go. And I want to go into whatever plane I extruded my wing into. Mine happens to be the front plane. From here, let me use a series of center lines. And my first center line goes from my leading edge to the trailing edge. And by definition, that's my chord line. So you remember that as I rotate this wing around and I look at it, if I take and go at an angle between my chord line, you're going to notice that between my chord line, if I drew another line up, I would get a relative angle of attack. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and put in another center line. And I'm going to go up at an angle. And I'm going to make that angle about 10 degrees angle of attack. So that's the first line that we're going to put in, but let's put in a second one. And we choose 10 degrees, and it looks a little odd in this configuration, so you have to kind of envision that the wing is flying at an angle, the wind's coming down that angle of attack line. So let's put a second line in at 25 degrees, again for my origin. Just sketch it out anywhere, it doesn't really matter. But what I do want to do is be sure that I'm smart dimensioning between my chord line and my line and putting in these two numbers, 10 and 25. So remember, I sketch the line and then I smart dimension it up here. When you're done, you can exit that sketch. So now I've got two different lines in here, and we'll go back and go back to my straight on view of my front plane. And I'm going to make some coordinate systems out of this. So let's come over here to features now and reference geometry. A couple different ways I can put in a coordinate system. So let me show you the first way. If I click on a coordinate system, I can actually choose an existing coordinate system like the X, Y, Z. I can choose that. And if I go right here, I can choose that point and then say, hey, the x-axis goes right along my first line here, 10 degrees. And you'll notice it rotates it. That works fine. So I've basically given it a point where it starts at and then the x-axis. Let's hit the check mark. But let's not call that coordinate system 1. Let's call it something else, and I'm going to call it 10 AOA. So you notice I just clicked on the box, turned into a text box where I could edit it, and then when I edit it, I hit enter. So now I've got that coordinate system that's running along, and it's a little bit hard to see. I'll zoom the screen in here in just a moment. So let's make a second coordinate system. So I'm going to click anywhere out here and go ahead and add a second coordinate system. So notice I don't have the 10 AOA selected. So a second coordinate system. Again, I'm going to choose my origin as my point. My x-axis is now going to be my 25-degree line, and accept it. Now I've got those two coordinate systems in here. Similarly, I want to make this 25 AOA. Two coordinate systems are set, and I've cleaned up my wing. We're now ready to start our SOLIDWORKS Flow. Now before we can do our SOLIDWORKS Flow, we need to be sure that the flow simulation is added. So up here, you'll see the Flow Simulation tab. So mine's active. If it's not active, come over here to Options, and it's basically the drop down here by the gear, by the Options gear, and click on Add-ins. And then in the second window, you're going to look for SOLIDWORKS Flow Simulation highlighted right there. Add that. It'll take probably 30 seconds to load up the first time you do it. You'll get the tab. So I'll pause the video until you can get the tab up.